Welcome to Modern Musings, conversations with the maiden, mother, and crone, looking at ourselves and the world through the lens of the 21st century. Welcome back. I'm your host, Christen Hessler. I'm here today with my co-hosts Cindy Murray and Amber Garvin, and today we're talking about sugar-free holiday baking. And if you popped over to our blog, you probably saw a couple of recipes, and we'll have some more coming up. We've all been testing out some recipes that we wanted to share with you guys. But today we're really going to talk about how you can start sugar-free baking for yourself. Really, if you're like new to sugar-free baking. So I'm just going to give you guys a little disclaimer. This isn't something that I'm an expert in any way. And I wasn't passionate about it until it became something as a necessity for myself and my family. And so now that it is a necessity, it's kind of ebbed its way into my life, and I'm on a journey. And I know that my mom, Cindy, is also on a journey with it, and Amber as well. We all have different health reasons why we have a sugar-free in our lives. My husband is diabetic. My mother is also diabetic, Cindy, and I have a high A1C. I've also had weight loss surgery, and so I do have to keep a low sugar, low carb lifestyle. So, I like sweets. Who doesn't? We all want to have a little dessert every now and then. And for those who are diabetic, it is almost impossible to have sweets without making your sugar go skyrocket. So in order to enjoy those things, you have to have something sugar-free. And so we wanted to talk to you guys today about sugar-free holiday baking, because it is the holidays coming up, and Mom and I are in the kitchen from Thanksgiving to Christmas, baking, making cookies, candies, treats, cakes, desserts for the holidays, and Amber as well. I know a lot of you guys probably do that during these winter months. It's great to have the oven on, keep the kitchen warm, and make something tasty.
Well, and your body just craves extra carbs because historically our physicality from caveman days or whatever was to put on pounds in the winter to conserve that energy for the lean months of the winter when there was no food to eat. So our bodies just naturally desire extra calories.
Right. And so I wanted to, talk with Amber and my mom Cindy today about our experiences with sugar-free holiday baking. And I also want to let you guys know that this episode today, we're not necessarily talking about low carb. So that's another little disclaimer. Today we're talking about sugar-free. In some way, some of our recipes and ways that we bake are also low carb, but the main idea is sugar-free today. So we'll be talking about how to determine what type of sugar-free substitutes and different techniques you might want to consider while you're baking. So I'm going to go ahead, and I wanted to ask Cindy one thing, because I know that it's one thing that you want to consider when baking.
Well, one of the things that, like she mentioned, sugar-free does not mean low carbs. So if you are diabetic, you do need to also watch carbs. And we'll have some future upcoming episodes about making things low carb as well.
And keto.
Which sometimes low carb and keto, some people take that to mean the same thing, and they are not necessarily the same.
No.
But we're going to talk about that. But one of the things I want to talk about is when we start substituting sugar substitutes, whatever they may be, they don't always work one for one. So one of the things you need to keep in mind is that baking or cooking of any kind is a sort of alchemy or chemistry. If you take water and you change it for milk, it's not going to react the same way. And so the same thing applies when you're doing sugar substitutes. Even though it may be equally sweet, it may change the consistency of your baking mix or whatever.
Yeah, you can't forget that sugar is not just to make something taste sweet, but it also does things like caramelize.
It's binding and things like that. And so there's a lot of different chemical reactions with sugar that do not occur with sugar-free substitutes. And also, not all sugar-free substitutes are used in a one-to-one basis, like 1 cup for 1 cup. So if you have something that calls for a cup of sugar and you use something like a stevia that is much stronger and does not translate into cup for cup, then you need to make sure that you are aware that it is going to change the viscosity of your chemical creation there. So that's a little bit of science there to keep in mind. Also, sugar dissolves and stays dissolved. Once it's been dissolved, it binds to the other ingredients, whereas many of the sugar substitutes, once they dissolve in the warm and water, after they cool, they return to their crystalline state. And so if you're trying to make a glaze with a sugar alcohol, that is not going to stay a glaze. It's going to be crystalline after it cools. So
that's what gives it that gritty, crunchy feeling,
yes,
doesn't
it? Sometimes a lot of sugar-free stuff does that.
Some of them, in my experience, also have like a cooling feeling in your mouth.
Yes, that is a thing that I've noticed. I think particularly with the sugar alcohols, you get a physical sensation of coolness in your mouth that is sometimes a little bit odd. And keep in mind also, when you're baking with this stuff, sometimes it may take several tries to get the perfect combination of chemicals. So don't give up just because you failed on your first try.
We've made some really weird things and some really delicious things as well. One in particular that we tried was a cobbler, and we used fresh fruit. Well, actually, I believe they were frozen.
They were frozen.
And we had to add, the sugar to it.
The sugar substitute. And normally the sugar substitute will gel it'll mix with the water and it starts to candy. It thickens as it heats.
It didn't.
It does not do that.
It was like granola-like. It was very gritty and it was bizarre. I mean, it tasted good. The sugar was on point. It tasted good. It
tasted great, but the consistency of it was really liquidy, mushy. There was so much liquid left in it.
It was like eating cornbread. Like, not baked cornbread, but like batter.
The cake batter in the dump cake. Yeah.
Cornbread batter.
Yeah, yes. It was weird. And that's one thing that I would recommend is if you are volunteering to make a dessert for, a bake club or as a gift, oh my gosh, don't try something and then give it out before actually like trying it yourself, because you're going to find that monk fruit is going to have a better result than the stevia saccharin option.
Different sweeteners work better in different circumstances. I know in my house we keep a lot of the different ones, and Christen and I were talking earlier about the many different kinds of sweeteners that are available. They all have different uses, and sometimes that trial and error that you use is trying one sweetener, and if you don't like the results, try it again with a different sweetener, because sometimes just changing the sweetener that you use may change the consistency or how it reacts in baking.
Exactly. My suggestion for you is to pick one thing that you know exactly how it's supposed to taste, how it's supposed to feel baking-wise, like your standard recipe for chocolate chip cookies. You can't make chocolate chip cookies necessarily sugar-free without getting sugar-free chocolate chips, but start off with one thing. Get your recipe that you know you love and you trust, and then pick that sugar substitute. Just pick one from the list, bake it, see how you like it. Next time, pick a different sugar substitute, do the exact same recipe, make it, see what you think. So, that's one thing to do, is determine the type of sugar substitute. And I can tell you my pantry has like 5 different ones in it.
And me too. And I use them all
for different things
all the time. So
I only like Swerve.
Yeah.
I only have Swerve.
Swerve
Sorry,
is
guys.
amazing.
I have Swerve in everything. I only use Swerve. I cannot stand the taste of anything else other than Swerve.
Yes, and actually my recipe that was on the blog for the Mexican wedding cookies, that was Swerve.
The powdered confectioner's sugar of Swerve, which actually tastes exactly like powdered sugar.
That's why Swerve's the best.
Except that it leaves that cold
It does
taste
leave
in
that
your
cold
mouth.
taste in your mouth.
It's really weird.
It's not really a taste, it's just like a sensation. But, just some of them, just off the top of our head, there's one that I do like. It's called sucralose. It's like Splenda. They have one that's granulated. That's something also you want to take into consideration. Like some of them are really refined. Like the sucralose, like I say, it's like Splenda, but the granulated on the baking aisle where the sugars are.
There's a granulated Splenda as well. Mm-hmm. So look whether you're using the granulated or the powdered.
Right.
Because if you're using the powdered Splenda,
it's a lot stronger.
It's like a lot stronger than the granulated.
600% stronger, I believe.
600% stronger than
So
sugar.
if you're looking on the bag, it'll usually say cup for cup like sugar or measures just like sugar. Look for that. It should have a big little stamp on the front, like a lot of things say no GMOs. It'll advertise that it's cup for cup.
I was going to say also look for some things because there are some sugar substitute blends. In fact, Swerve has one of those. It's a brown sugar because it's really difficult to make brown sugar in a sugar-free version. But they have a sugar-free blend brown sugar of Swerve that is the Swerve. I believe it's a sugar alcohol is what it is. And then it has a little bit of the molasses or whatever it is that makes brown sugar. So look for that. Don't assume that every sugar substitute is sugar-free. If you're really being...
Always read the labels.
Read the labels.
Always read the labels. Do your research, especially if you're just getting into this.
And another thing to point out, too, is that there are some sugar-free or sugar substitutes that are toxic to pets. So xylitol is one of those. So check your ingredients and make sure that you don't give your beloved little puppy a little snip of your cookie if it has xylitol in it, because it could be toxic to your pet.
Very instant toxic. That's your xylitol. There's also erythritol. You want to be very considerate of that too, because if you are sensitive to sugar alcohols, erythritol is straight up sugar alcohols, and it can give some extreme gastric discomfort.
But it's really only if you eat too much of it. So if you have it in small quantities, it shouldn't bother you unless you're extremely sensitive to it. But a lot of people do have sensitivities to the sugar alcohols, and that is something to keep in mind.
Definitely.
So you don't want to eat the whole batch of cookies in one setting.
If you're really
Hopefully you're not.
Right. Yeah, I know. Just because it's sugar-free doesn't mean you can eat the whole box.
Full disclosure, I've done that before.
Right.
Yeah, who hasn't?
If you're really into natural, monk fruit. Have you ever heard of monk fruit, you guys? I never heard of it until a year ago. Someone was telling me about it. And you actually can get this anywhere, just about. I mean, Winco is one of the grocery stores that we have here. They're the stores that have the bins where you can just scoop out however much you want. They actually have
you can scoop out
bin of monk fruit at Winco. You can just get as much as you want.
I will
you don't
say
have to buy a giant package that costs $14.
You could buy a cup of it and try it in your favorite recipe. But I will say that's another one to watch out for with the being
flavor.
No. That it is often a blend of sugar and monk fruit. So keep an eye out for that to
pure,
make sure you're using pure monk fruit if you need to have no sugar. My sister-in-law, Patricia, hey, Patricia, introduced me to that one, and I love that one. It's natural and
scoop for scoop also.
It works scoop for scoop, but you do have to be careful that it's not a blend if you are watching out for sugars.
And there's one more too that I didn't want to forget about. I don't have a lot of experience with this one. Stevia. My doctor actually was recommending stevia
Really good in
instead
coffee.
of
It
Splenda.
is. I use stevia in my coffee most often.
I like to
That's
use
the
stevia
green
in
packets that are really hard to find.
Yeah, they are really hard to find, and you can bake with stevia also because I've done it before. But there's definitely, you really have to read the labels when you bake with stevia because full disclosure, both of my parents were diabetic. And so I often tried to make sugar-free things for them, but you really have to read the labels when it comes to stevia, or it will just turn out horrible if you...
Is it scoop for scoop?
It's not.
It's not.
It
It's
is
very,
not
very
scoop for
sweet.
scoop. It's
also.
Okay,
stevia
so-
is way sweeter.
And that's where it's difficult with baking, because when you're baking, it's not like cooking on the stove. And anyone who's, an avid baker can tell you that it has to be pretty darn precise or you get something weird.
It's chemistry, I
It
tell you.
really
it
is.
It's alchemy,
And
chemistry, whatever you want to call
the
it.
amount of sugar,
Science.
the weight of it is, that's also a consideration when you're baking, is the measurement, the mass of it is part of it, not just the flavor, but the mass of something. So it's really like, if you don't put as much flour in your cookies, they're not going to have the right consistency. Same thing with sugars and sugar substitutes, is sometimes it does really need to be that cup for cup so that you get the right density, or something's going to feel
Egg
fluffy or out
size
of
too.
place.
Egg size matters if you use a small egg or an extra
Oh,
large
it does.
egg.
I that was a hard lesson for me to learn. We may talk about that on another episode coming up.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I do want to mention that coming up later, I believe it comes out on Saturday, my blog. I'm going to make I'm going to share a family recipe of mine for a sugar-free and lower carb version of banana pudding that is a holiday. It's actually an Easter holiday tradition at our family. But we set out to make a sugar-free, lower carb version of it, and we were really stumped how to do that because one of the main ingredients is
you're talking
banana.
about the cookie
I'm
part.
talking about in the cooking part. One of the main ingredients is Eagle brand, and everybody's like, I can't make my favorite dish because it doesn't have. I can't find sugar-free Eagle brand, and you think, why doesn't something like that exist? Hello, Eagle brand. Why don't you have a sugar-free version? Because I'm telling you, it's possible. I found a recipe online.
It's to die for.
It is really to die for. It came from thebigmansworld.com, and I'm not going to give you the recipe. You can go look it up, but we test drove it on several different recipes, and we had some wins and misses with it, but I'm going to use it to make a banana pudding from my family that is to die for. Eat your heart out, Paula Dean.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's my favorite banana pudding recipe. Paula Dean's, that's my favorite. But I'm gonna have to try
think this
it.
one is better.
Next time you make it, invite me over because I am obsessed with banana pudding.
I can't believe you haven't been at our house at Easter because this is a annual food.
I've been at your house at Easter, but it's been a few years, and so I don't know. I think last time I was there during Easter, I had just had my surgery,
and
and
probably
I
weren't
ate
having
like
the recipes.
Yeah, I was
Having
not
the
gonna
desserts.
eat.
Oh yeah,
banana
2020
pudding.
Easter was.
Well, yeah, we had nobody.
Almost not
My
existent.
sad 2020 Easter was
No, I was
me,
there,
my mother, my husband, and my niece Ashley.
2019.
Yeah,
I
it would have
came
been
down
at least 2019. Yeah.
Easter was right after I had my gastric sleeve surgery.
Oh
so,
yeah. So you probably weren't eating desserts, but
no,
yeah,
I was just eating.
you'll have
probably
to try
turkey.
that one. It's a really good one. I'm really excited to share this because it's my mother's secret recipe. I guess it's not going to be a secret anymore, and I have no idea where she got this recipe, but it is delicious. And like I said, we've made it pretty low carb. So,
Well, I did want to point out that there's obviously a lot more to be said on this subject, and we had mentioned some other words like low carb and keto, so you can definitely be hearing more about these subjects from us because it is something that's important to us, and we do want to share our experiences with you guys. We would also like for you guys to share in your conversations with us. What have you found as a success with your sugar-free substitutions? Do you have any recommendations or anything that you might say, definitely don't do this, so that we don't
anything
make the
you
same
want us
mistake?
to try, because we love to bake, all three of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we do.
That's a passion of ours, is baking. Now, sugar-free baking is slowly
It's really all
becoming
about
part
the
of
eating. It's about the eating.
It is.
The end result.
Okay, so I think Amber is our hostess next week.
Yeah.
What are we doing next week, Amber?
Oh, well, we're going to be talking about holiday holiday traditions, and I am going to talk about the holiday. In my blog, I talk about the holiday cookies that I make every year, and we're going to talk about other traditions that we do during the holidays. Full disclosure, my cookies are not sugar-free, ladies.
Oh,
That's okay. Bake them anyways.
That's right. Everybody who's not sugar-free can eat them. So I guess, Christen, do we have anything else to wrap up with that?
Well, I just want to remind you guys, don't forget to follow us on social media. The links are on our website. And if you haven't done so already, be sure to follow us on Facebook. That's where you can join in on the conversation that we're talking about. Joining in on the conversation.
Yes, we want you to partake
yes,
of the
we'd
conversation.
love to have.
Follow us on all social media.
Yeah, you'll find us on Instagram and TikTok.
YouTube.
We're everywhere.
We're everywhere.
Yeah, we are everywhere.
And then, of course, our blog. So don't forget to check out our blog, too, very often, because we do have regular postings on our blog. We also want to give special thanks to Red Door Studios, Creative Audio Tech, and Rimshot Graphics for our equipment, music, and our graphics and logos.
Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.
We'll
Bye,
see you
everybody.
later.
See you later.